Hello and welcome to another episode for positional breakdowns in Draftkings Week 1. And today we are going to break down the running backs. I am your host, Jacob Brown, and I'm excited for Week 1, guys. We got 2 weeks away. We're getting pumped. And the first player I'm super pumped up about is Christian McCaffery. He's 9,500, but for a great reason. Look, guys, he only played in 2 games last year, and in those 2 games, he had 59 rushing attempts, 225 rushing yards. He averaged 75 yards a game, 6 touchdowns, rushing and receiving, and 30.1 DraftKings points he averaged. Let me say that again. 30.1 DraftKings points he averaged. That's just impressive. Now, they're playing the New York Jets, and the last few years we loved to play teams that were playing the Jets, and I don't see this being any other reason why we shouldn't. Christian McCaffrey has every right to be the most expensive running back on this slate. If you're smart in most of your season-long leagues, you're picking him number 1 overall. He's got all the tools in the basket, and here's some of the reasons why you should draft him for this Week 1 slate. He's the best dual-threat running back in the league. He runs pretty good, and he catches at a high level. While he only played in 2 games last season, I expect him to have really fresh legs. I can't wait to see it. He has a high usage percentage. The last time he played a full healthy season, he led the league in usage for all running backs in the NFL. And this might be a concern to some, that he has a new quarterback, but in my opinion, new QB, no problem. Expect him to be used the same way he's always been used, and that's that high usage percentage we've already discussed, be included in the passing game at a high volume, and he's a great runner of the football as well. In my opinion, due to the price, I could see him being lower owned than Dalvin Cook, who we're going to discuss here in a little bit. Ownership is definitely something to keep an eye on preparing for your week, especially when it comes to these high-priced quarterbacks. And depending on the contest you play in, you want to get a little different. So if, let's say, Dalvin Cook is the highest owned running back, you should try to get a little bit more Christian McCaffrey in your lineup, depending on the ownership. So we need to keep an eye on that. We got a little over 2 weeks before the season starts, and ownership will be coming out soon for these players. The next running back we are going to discuss is the Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook, who's at $9,100 on DraftKings. Last season, he was just great. He had 312 rushing attempts, 1,557 rushing yards. He averaged 111.2 yards a game, 17 touchdowns, and 26.1 DraftKings points averaged per game. This is a great game for Dalvin Cook. I really like the game environment, and we'll discuss that a little bit more here. Why should you draft Dalvin Cook? Obviously, he has great usage, and he's also a dual threat, but considered more of a runner. But you can see him catching the football some, but he's considered more of a runner. This is a run-first offense, so they are going to make it a priority to get Dalvin Cook involved. And that's why he's so great. I mean, he's on the goal line. He's an every down back. And something to really look at here is that there's no real concern on the depth chart for him to lose carries. I mean, he doesn't really have no one behind him. Alexander Madison this week is 5,000. No one's going to roster that. No one's going to want to even play that. Dalvin Cook, great usage. And this is a great game script as they're favorites to win this game. They're projected to be the 9th highest team total with 25.75 points. And over the offseason, they improved this offensive line. And something that's not on here is that they improved their defense as well. And, okay, they improved their defense. What's that got to do with Dalvin Cook? That's got a lot to do with Dalvin Cook because they're going to try to keep offenses off the field as much as possible. And to do that, you got to have a great defense, and you also have to have a great running game. So expect Dalvin Cook to run the ball a lot to keep the Cincinnati Bengals off the field. If they get out early, Dalvin Cook is going to get a lot of work, and I expect him to be the workhorse back of Week 1. Now, our next running back, Alvin Kamara for the New Orleans Saints. He's at 8,600. And I just love this guy. In 2020, 2021, he had 228 attempts, 1,116 rushing yards, 65.6 yards per game, 22 touchdowns, and he had 24.5 fantasy points per game. Look, this guy in like 6 or 8 weeks of the season was the best fantasy running back in the league. If you played season long and you had him on your team, more than likely you won your league. This guy plays amazing. And here's some reasons why I want him on my roster in Week 1. First off, let's just start with this. Michael Thomas is injured, the wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. And my thing here is no Michael Thomas, no problem. Without Michael Thomas last season, Kamara averaged almost 31 fantasy points per game with more rushing and receiving production. And to put it best, he's the best pass-catching back in the game. He's more of a receiver, especially now with Michael Thomas not here, than he is a running back, in my opinion. And I really think he's going to be involved in the passing game a ton, especially now that we know Jameis Winston was named the starting quarterback. And this just makes Kamara a great play, and he will be more involved in the passing game. And that's just something that you want to think about when you're rostering Alvin Kamara. Now, he is more considered a pass-catching running back, but you also got to consider his rushing on the ground. Now, in the slide before this, I said that he averaged 65.6 rushing yards a game. You add those rushing stats, and you get, that's guaranteed 6.56 Draftkings points. And then you add the receiving, and you're not even considering touchdowns here. He is a great option, and I will be rostering him. One thing to keep an eye on, though, is with this quarterback news, I expect his ownership to come up. We don't have any ownership right now, but I expect him to be the highest owned, one of the highest owned running backs. If you had to put ownership in order right now, I'd probably say Dalvin Cook would be the highest owned and then you get Alvin Kamara, and then you get Christian McCaffrey, because you're basically getting Christian McCaffrey-like numbers at a lower price. So I definitely, if I had to make a roster today, I would put Alvin Kamara over Christian McCaffrey. Now, we're moving on to Austin Ekeler at $7,000. They're playing a tough Washington defense, but that has no concerns for me. He's coming off an injury-riddled season, but he had 116 rushing attempts, 530 rushing yards. He averaged 53 yards a game. He had 3 touchdowns, and he averaged 16.5 fantasy points per game. You might say those numbers aren't that impressive, but like I said, he did miss some time, and there's a whole lot that's changed for him over the offseason that makes me like him a whole lot for this Week 1 slate. So why should you draft Austin Ekeler? Well, first off, he's a great dual threat upside running back. He catches at a high level. Look, guys, when you're rostering running backs, you want this passing volume. You know he's going to rush the football some, but you want the passing volume. I make that something very pivotal, especially when you get to these high dollar price points. You want a receiving back on your team. He's always had high target levels through the air. He has a wide receiver 1 or 2 value. And in this game, he has a real high floor with a solid ceiling in terms of fantasy points. I really see him becoming the second coming of Alvin Kamara this year. And the main reason is they have a new coaching staff to make an effort to get him more involved. If you guys don't know this, the new offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, was the offensive coordinator for the Saints last year, and we saw what he did to help Alvin Kamara get to that next level last year. I can definitely see this being the case for Austin Ekeler. He's very talented. He's got a great pass-catching upside. He can run the ball. They got a better offensive line now. And that's something that's going to protect him, because the last few seasons our biggest worries were if he could stay healthy. Last season, he did not stay healthy. He missed a lot of games. But I can definitely see this offensive line protecting him better and getting him better opportunities and getting hit less likely. And with Hunter Henry being gone, this could increase his volume of targets. This increases volume of targets even more than it already is. I really like what I see from Austin Ekeler, and you better believe I'm getting him in my lineups in Week 1. Now we move on to Aaron Jones for the Green Bay Packers. They're playing New Orleans, and I really like this game on both sides. Last season, Aaron Jones had 221 rushing attempts. He averaged 1,230 rushing yards, and he had averaged 76.9 yards a game, and he had 12 touchdowns, along with an average of 18.3 fantasy points per game. Why should you draft Aaron Jones? Well, for starters, he's one of the most efficient running backs inside the 5-yard line. And you just want every little piece of Aaron Jones you can get. They're favored at home with an implied team total of 26.5. And he's definitely going to be involved in that. And I know there's some worries about A.J. Dillon taking some carries away from Aaron Jones, but I'm not worried about this, not in the slightest. Aaron Jones is the workhorse back, in my opinion. Last offseason, or this offseason, they signed him to a huge contract. Look, if you're signing a guy to a contract, you better believe that he's going to get volume. He's going to earn that contract, and I believe he will be a huge workhorse this season for the Green Bay Packers. And he has not played in the preseason, and I don't expect him to play the last game. So he should have some fresh legs and be healthy for week 1. This is going to be a big game for Aaron Jones and the Green Bay Packers. I love both sides of this game, Green Bay and New Orleans, and I'm definitely going to roster some Aaron Jones. Our next running back is Miles Sanders at 6,500. He's the Philadelphia Eagles running back. He's playing the Atlanta Falcons, and this is a prime spot game. Last season, Miles Sanders had 164 rushing attempts, 867 rushing yards. He averaged 72.3 yards a game with 6 touchdowns, and he averaged 14.9 fantasy points a game. Look, Miles Sanders, he's going to be the focal point of this rushing offense. And at $6,500 in this game environment, he's going to be hard not to get to. Here's some reasons why you should draft Miles Sanders. He's a good dual threat running back. Great runner, and he has inclusion in the passing game. And like I said before, this is a great game environment with an applied game total of 48 points. I expect this to be a back and forth game for both teams. He should expect to get bulk of the workload. I know there's been some rumors out there that they're going to try to do a running back by committee in Philadelphia, but I really don't see this being the case. Miles Sanders just looks head over heels better than all the depth on their depth chart, and I'd be very surprised if Miles Sanders loses some carries to Kenny Gainwell or Boston Scott. And I really think he's going to be overlooked in ownership due to the pass catchers on his team. A lot of people are excited to play Jalen Hurts, and I get it. And with that, they're going to want to get to his pass catchers more than his running back. Look, you got guys like Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz. I believe those guys are going to have more attention on them than Miles Sanders, which makes Miles Sanders a great tournament play for GPPs and single entry tournaments. You better believe I'm going to get involved with some Miles Sanders there. One thing we got to look at, though, is at this price, he is touchdown dependent. So he's going to need to score a touchdown. If they're playing with the lead, don't expect receptions from Sanders. This all just depends on game script. And I've said before in other videos that this could be the highest scoring game on the slate, potentially. And if you look at it this way, I really do think that the Eagles are going to get Miles Sanders involved, especially if it's a competitive game. Now, let's move on to Joe Mixon for the Cincinnati Bengals. They're playing the Minnesota Vikings, and he's at $6,200. Now, last season, he didn't play the full year, but the games he did play in, he had 119 rushing attempts, 428 rushing yards. He averaged 71.3 yards a game, and he had 4 touchdowns, and he averaged 17.3 fantasy points per game. Why should you draft him? Why should you draft him? He has no good depth behind him, so expect a lot of volume. Expect him to be more a part of the passing game than last season. And this is a good scoring environment with the 48-point combined game total. I expect him to go a bit overlooked due to the price of the pass catchers. Just like I mentioned with Miles Sanders, you got guys like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd that you want to stack with Joe Burrow, and I feel like those are going to be made more a priority than rostering Joe Mixon. He's got no one behind him to steal any carries. They're at home. So expect Joe Mixon to be heavily involved in this Week 1 contest. I believe he's going to be a great contrarian play for Week 1. Expect him to be in some GPPs and some single entries. If you're going to roster him, play him in tournaments. Now, we move on to Mike Davis, 5,400, playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Last season, he played for the Carolina Panthers. He had 165 rushing attempts, 642 rushing yards. He averaged 42.8 rushing yards a game, 8 touchdowns, and 13.8 fantasy points. I really like Mike Davis at this price point, and this is why you should draft him. As of right now, he's the best value running back on the slate. 5,400 is just too cheap for Mike Davis. He has the capability to be an every down back. He did it last year when CMC went down for the Carolina Panthers, and I expect him to be just as good, maybe even better this season. He can have an impact in the passing game. As we saw last year, he caught the ball a lot for the Panthers. I know that was more of the Panthers' playing style, but I expect Atlanta to do the same. I really think he has some great upside in the passing game. There's no decent backups to take away snaps from Mike Davis. Mike Davis is the lead back. I don't see him losing snaps to anyone in that depth chart like Cordell Patterson or Quadre Allison. Those guys are not taking snaps from Mike Davis. They got the 9th implied team total at 25.75, so that's something to keep an eye on. Their top 10 scoring team this coming week projected in Vegas. They're home favorites, which we love to get home favorites. So when you're wanting to draft a running back, you want to get volume, value. Those are the two main points, volume and value. And we love home running backs that are favorites to win. And I can definitely see Mike Davis checking all those check marks at a cheap $5,400. Now we got some honorable mentions here. We aren't able to get to everybody, but when I look at this slate, the guys I highlighted before these guys I like better, but I'm also going to get some of these guys in my player pool. When you're playing 150 lineups, you want to get a lot of different players involved in certain percentages. So I'll definitely have these guys involved. First, I want to discuss Derrick Henry. Look, I'm not even afraid to stack Derrick Henry with Ryan Tannehill in one of his pass catchers and a run back option with Arizona. And I'm really considering it. Derrick Henry has the ability to break a slate on any given Sunday. He's the best running back as a runner in the league. Like, it's either him or Nick Chubb being the best running back. He doesn't get involved much in the passing game, but when he does, guys, it's big gains, big yards. He's a big dude, so it's hard to take him down. So when they throw the ball to him, he gets pretty decent yardage. And then we'll go to Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts. I'm a little iffy on Jonathan Taylor. It really depends on how much I like of the Seattle Seahawks passing options for a run back, but I'm definitely going to get a little bit of Jonathan Taylor just because he's good, guys, and he has the capability of being low owned. He's right in that range with Saquon Barkley. I think he has some upside, but it's just too early to tell if he will be effective. So we're going to keep an eye on his ownership. And if he gets low owned, if he gets in those single digits, you got to really consider rostering Jonathan Taylor. And we move on to Nick Chubb at 7,200. I'm definitely going to get to him due to the fact how much I love the Kansas City Chiefs stacks. And he's going to be probably my highest owned run back option on those stacks. I really believe Nick Chubb is going to be great this week. He's got fresh legs. Look, this is the freshest his legs are going to be all season long. And one thing to point out in this game, as of right now, it's the highest projected team total, I believe, at like 58 or 59 points. They think this game is going to be the highest scoring game of the week. And both teams got a score in this. So I can definitely see Nick Chubb getting involved, especially if, like, for some reason they get out early. I believe this game's in Cleveland. Cleveland's defense is no joke. And we saw in the Super Bowl that a strong front seven could compete with the Kansas City offense. So I can definitely see a version of this game where Nick Chubb can help the Browns get out to an early lead. I really like it. Now we move on to the other side of this game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 6,600. Look, there's definitely some injury concern right now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's $6,600, so that's a heavy price point. I could definitely see my mind changing about him if we get some news that this ankle injury is way seriouser than the Andy Reid and the Kansas City medical staff are making this out to be. So he's definitely someone to keep an eye on, but let me point out this real quick. If CH does not play, Jerick McKinnon is $4,100, and I expect him to be the lock of the week if Clyde Edwards-Helaire cannot make it to week 1. Now, we move on to James Robinson. His stock's gone up in a huge way. Travis Etienne, the first-round rookie, was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He got hurt in a preseason game against the Saints, and he's going to have a foot injury or foot surgery that's going to have him out the rest of the season. And this makes James Robinson a way better play at this price point than he would have been if Travis Etienne was there. When I looked at prices for the first time and I was analyzing players, I saw this price point and in my head I was thinking, this is the price point he was at last season. Why do they have him up this high? And it's for situations like this. When a rookie gets hurt, value on a backup just goes up. And I'm not saying that Draftkings saw this coming, but they priced him correctly. This is the price he's supposed to be at. So if anyone tells you you're getting a value for James Robinson, I mean, I could definitely see a point where, like, if salaries hadn't came out yet and they said James Robinson was $7,000 or $7,500, I wouldn't be totally against that. I think $7,500 would be a little high. But I really think $6,400 is right where he should be. And he's definitely going to be in my player pool. I got to look at his ownership because I feel like right now a lot of players are going to jump to him. And he could be up there with the Alvin Kamaras and Christian McCaffreys and Dalvin Cooks and ownership. So that's something to be careful on. You don't want to get too hyped on injury news. All right, so now we move on to Najee Harris at 6,300. I'm going to get to some Najee. This James Robinson news probably damages his chances of playing Najee a lot. But as of right now, he's a good pivot off of James Robinson. And if you want to get a little different, week one's a week to always want to get different. And I could see myself maybe splitting James Robinson and Najee Harris a bit. I just really don't like this game environment for Najee. The Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line is not very good. He's not going to be protected well. Buffalo has revamped this defense. And I know they were a team to pick on, as I got the Derrick Henry, Josh Norman picture up from last year when Derrick Henry just ran through this Bills defense. But I think they're a little bit better than what people are giving them credit for. And I just don't think this is the game to play Najee. But y'all feel more than free to play him more than I am. I'll have a few lineups with him in my 150s, but not someone I really want to get too much of. And now we move on to Antonio Gibson at 5,900. He's someone I'm definitely interested in. He's a few $100s more than, as of right now, to me, the best value on the slate, and Mike Davis. I believe he'd be a great pivot. The problem is how do you think this game is going to go? Washington's playing the Chargers, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is the Washington football team's quarterback. And I don't know if I feel safe playing Gibson, because look what could happen. Ryan Fitzpatrick, we know he's the gunslinger among gunslingers, one of the last of a dying breed. And he could definitely go out and throw 2 or 3 interceptions, and the Chargers could easily get out to a big lead. And when that happens, they're going to have to throw the ball more. And I don't know if Antonio Gibson would be involved in that as much. We saw last year that J.D. McKissick was the primary receiving back for Washington. We really hope that Gibson could get involved in the receiving game. I just don't see it happening in week one. But then you can look at this in a different light. And this is why I want to have some ownership on Antonio Gibson, is that the Chargers have the Washington football team, they have a great defense too. And there's a narrative that some quarterbacks that have good rookie years have sophomore slumps. And I'm not saying that this could be Justin Herbert's sophomore slump season, but Washington's defense is a good defense. And I could see a version of this game where Washington can get a turnover, pop Justin Herbert in the mouth a few times, slow this game down, and get Antonio Gibson completely involved. So it really just depends on how you think this game is going to go. I'm going to have some ownership on Gibson. We got to wait till ownership comes out on a lot of these players to see who I like better. And we'll make some more videos about who I like, and we'll rank them in pricing tiers. But as of right now, definitely got some interest in Antonio Gibson at $5,900. And now we got another $5,900 player in Chris Carson. And it's kind of the same deal here. I've said in some videos prior to this one that I feel like the Colts are going to make this a slow game. But if for some reason Carson Wentz has like some injury issues and can't make it to be the starter for this game, I could definitely see a version of this game where Chris Carson helps Seattle get out to an early lead. I feel like they're going to push the ball with him. If it's a slow game, if it's a hardcore defensive game, I could see a version of this game being really slow on both sides offensively. And Chris Carson could be the reason why the Seattle Seahawks could get out to an early lead. I'm going to have some ownership in Chris Carson. I like this game for the rushing purposes, and I'll definitely roster some Chris Carson. Now we get to Raheem Mostert. A day or two prior to recording this, there was a report coming out that Raheem Mostert injured his back. And if that's the case, it'll be really disappointing because I really liked Raheem Mostert to be a sneaky, low-owned play. We don't know the severity of the injury, but as of right now, he looks to be somewhat of a question mark. And if for some reason he can't suit up, Trey Sermon will be a value running back. He could be the top value running back for this team and maybe the value of the slate. I believe he's 4K, so that's definitely someone to keep an eye on. They're playing a Detroit defense that just can't really defend anything right now. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. San Francisco is heavy favorites, so expect the running backs to be involved in this game. And then we move on to Kareem Hunt. I like Kareem Hunt for the many reasons I stated as to why I like this Kansas City and Cleveland game. Kareem Hunt is a great receiving back. He doesn't get as much volume as Nick Chubb, but I could definitely see a version of this game where Cleveland could be trying to get out early and get Kareem Hunt involved early. He's very talented, as we saw all season long last year. He's at a decent price point for a receiving back. I love Kansas City Chiefs stacks, so I'm definitely going to have him in some run back options for those stacks. So believe that I'm going to get to some Kareem Hunt. Then we move on to Melvin Gordon. Now, I don't really like this Denver versus Giants game very much. There's a few pieces I'll get in, and one of them is Melvin Gordon. If there were a great pivot to make from Mike Davis, it would be Melvin Gordon. A lot of people have been bashing his name for the offseason. A lot of people were thinking that Javonte Williams was going to get the start week 1. He is now listed as the backup. Melvin Gordon is still the starter. I could see a version of this game where Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon kind of split the carries, but I could also see a version of this game where Melvin Gordon get maybe like 75% of the carries. And at this price point, I believe Denver will end up being the favorites when we get closer to week 1. So I really do like Melvin Gordon at this price, and he's somebody that I will probably get more of than most. Now we get to Tevin Coleman at 4,900. I really don't know what to make of this New York Jets backfield. As of right now, they have Tevin Coleman as the starter, but that doesn't really mean a lot when you're trying to roster this backfield. I loved Michael Carter's price point, especially early in training camp when there was a report coming out that Michael Carter was running with the first team. So the problem is is that we don't know who the starter is. Hopefully when we get closer to week 1, we'll find out. But right now, I got Tevin Coleman on here. I believe he could be the starter for week 1. He's the veteran of the running back group. Robert Saleh is a former coach of his on the 49ers, and Robert Saleh is now the head coach of the Jets. So as of right now, let's just put Tevin Coleman in as a starter. But this is something we need to monitor leading up to week 1. And now, the last current value I like is Chase Edmonds. I only like Chase Edmonds because, one, the game environment. They should be playing from a lead. They should be playing from behind in this game against Tennessee. And Chase Edmonds is a receiving running back. He has some rushing upside, but he can catch the ball as well. At this price point, he's projected to be the starter. So he could be a sneaky value play that I like for week 1. But there's still some news out there, and you also got to watch out for James Conner. He could be a goal line vulture, and Kyler Murray could also be a goal line vulture for Chase Edmonds. But the price point is just spot on for me. So I will get to some Chase Edmonds, especially when I'm trying to run back with those Tennessee stacks. And that's it, guys. These are the running backs I like as of right now. Like I said, we got 2 weeks to figure out who we like. Injury. Pay attention to injuries, and then when we get closer into the week 1, pay attention to ownership. When we get closer to week 1, I'll come out with a tiers of the running backs I like by price range. But as of right now, these are the guys I like. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Plenty more to come from this channel. And I'm your host, Jacob Brown. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.